Tennessee, David Toulis.
The Hamilton County Commission this morning shot down a petition for a permit for a plant, a wastewater treatment plant in Ooltewah off of Mahan Gap Road. There has been a great deal of opposition from neighbors to this proposal. And according to Dean Morehouse, who is leading one organization fighting this plan, there are 3,500 households and more. He has more than 5,500 signatures against this effort to as he would say, to bring irresponsible growth to Hamilton County. Irresponsible because it is in his neighborhood, and he and the other prospective neighbors are doubtful of the role of science, the power of technology to reduce odors and to make a plant like that perfectly unnoticeable, to be able to operate cleaning sewage water, cleaning human waste and runoff from storms, and sending it in clean condition to the Tennessee River, according to the federal rules. The vote was 6-3 against, and the 3 in favor of the plan, which was expected or is expected to cost $45 million at that site. The 3 in favor of the plan are Commissioners David Sharp, Warren Mackey, and Greg Martin. And all those who voted against the plant are Bankston, Chip Baker, Randy Fairbanks, Sabrina Smedley, Kathleen Jeter, and Tim Boyd. Now, Tim Boyd voted pass initially, as did Warren Mackey. When pressed on the second go-around on their vote, Tim Boyd voted no, and Mackey voted yes. So 3 are for the plant, and 6 are against the plant. Now, they were voting on a resolution. Well, they were voting on a vote on a motion and a second motion to vote against it, a no vote. So in other words, the voting was sort of just the inverse of what they actually felt. The ones who were against the plan all voted yes, and the ones who were for the plan all voted no. But in fact, I'm going to get confused by that. But I had to ask Bill Knowles, the county clerk, okay, straighten it out for me, Mr. Knowles, who is for it, who's against it. So it was clear that 6 were in voting in favor of the resolution to vote against it, were in fact against the plan. Well, is that right? Do I have it right? Well, this is David Toulis, and you get the picture. Though I may trip over the detail. 6 voted against this $45 million project, which would be built in about 6 or 7 years, and 3 voted for it. And there's been a great deal of consideration on this. There was the longest hearing in Hamilton County history, as far as anyone can remember, or having read a record of earlier meetings, the longest meeting of about 5 hours, hearing all the sides. And that was either last week or 2 weeks ago. And that hearing shows, I would say, the strength of mind and heart of the county commission and the people who are on it, because they will argue things in detail. And that is a body where ideas are considered and questions are asked. And sometimes there's not a worry about time. Whereas on city council, where there was a routine Tuesday night meeting yesterday, everything is dispatched and there's virtually no discussion about anything of ideas. There's no larger sense of having words look into things, having witnesses, having experts answer questions. There's very little of that going on in city council. But the county commission had a meeting this morning that went about 2 hours and voted to not approve of the permit. The second part of the meeting that is of note to you, my listener, is the presence of about 24 Black people, African American people, who are aggrieved at the treatment by Sheriff Blake. What's his name now? Blake Kilpatrick, the sheriff's deputy, Blake Kilpatrick, the treatment of Charles Interstate Tax Tony, the musician and family man. He has 4 very young children outside of his apartment, where he was soundly thrashed, kicked, and beaten, his nose broken, 2 ribs broken or fractured, a lung collapsed, and abrasions all over his body, kicked in his private parts from behind by a sturdy black boot of the deputy. And the charges were yesterday morning all dropped, as of course you probably already know that, in Judge Lila Statum's court. The accusations withdrawn by one of the deputies of District Attorney Neil Pinkston. And the question now before the county commission is how can this man be on the force, be on the payroll? And Warren Mackey said that no, this man must be fired. It cannot be that we have people who are treated like that when he was beaten and kicked unnecessarily. He said, and when someone is in custody and handcuffed, as Interstate Tax Tony was, Warren Mackey says a whole different set of rules that apply, and you can't have that kind of treatment. And so he said he demanded the firing of that man, the firing of Blake Kilpatrick. The NAACP had a representative there who made a very brief comment. Brandon Woodruff, who ran for the state house in the East Ridge area, also commented about the trauma of this event to this singer, whom he said has PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, similar to those experienced by a soldier. And do we as a county and the people in the county, and here he is speaking really to you, my listener, because you are addressed when someone addresses a public forum. It is you who is being addressed, because you are represented by that body, and that person's ears and that person's lips on that commission or on that council serves you, right? It hears what you're supposed to hear and says theoretically what you are supposed to say as well. And do the lives of the poor matter? Brandon Woodruff said to those in power, that would be to those on the county commission. And so this officer, whom he said has an extensive history of abuse, can we stand that he remains in his position and not be unceremoniously and harshly fired with a loud thunderclap, in other words, as opposed to just being let go off the payroll and Friday's your last day, Blake. Hope you find better work elsewhere in some other law enforcement department. That something that is a noisy breaking of the ties there of employment. This is David Toulis, and we're glad you're giving us a couple of minutes here at 92.7 FM and 95.3 FM HD4. We cover local economy and the free market. And there, I think it's worth, since you were busy this morning, we're not able to attend the county commission meeting to hear just a little bit about what is being said, or what was being said, and to think what is the larger picture. The larger picture I'd like to suggest is the one that I have been offering about this wastewater treatment plant. If one is built, it will cost $20 million more, because the site location of this plant on Mahan Gap Road is apparently just perfect. There's no other site in the northern part of the county that will fit all the requirements, avoiding the building of pumping stations, which are very prone to breaking down and very expensive. Also, pumping stations can add $20 million in cost if your site is in the wrong place. So this site is in a low point, as Mark Harrison or the engineer Scott McDonald said in testimony before the commission. It's the drain at the bottom of the tub. It's there's a slight slant in the land, and the area of growth, the proposed area of service, is above it. So that's perfect as far as elevation goes. And some area of service which is south of the proposed plant, there has to be continued pumping to get the wastewater and the sewage to proposed treatment there. And so there doesn't seem to be, I don't think, a lot of argument about geographically the necessity of having the plant there. If it were elsewhere, it would have you would have problems getting the sewage up very high elevations and over a ridge to the river. And and other proposed sites were thought to cost as many as $20 million more, plus the added expense of pumping stations and the problem that they pose as well. Because right now we have apparently an almost taxed Moccasin Bend plant, which is 15 times bigger than this one. This is a very small plant proposed for encouraging growth in the northern part of the county. 15 times smaller, and when it has add-ons and improvements and enlargements, it'll be a tenth of the size of Moccasin Bend. But the Moccasin Bend facility has already perhaps as much as it can take from distant places. Some sewage here in Helena County goes 30 miles through pipes and pumping stations, 30 miles before it gets there. So the question is, if we're going to have more horizontal growth, do we have a plant in the eastern part of the county, northeastern part of the county? Because Moccasin Bend is sort of at the bottom left of the county, and this plant is sort of the upper right of the county. And if the county is going to have more growth and more expansion with demand that goes with it, other demand for schools and bridges and the like, highways and things like that are all public expenses, you have to have at some point you have to take care of the waste, and that's what this structure would allow growth in the county. Now, Jim Coppinger he attends every council meeting. He's got a place there on the dais on the left hand side, and I'd say legally, and that's appropriate. He's part of the executive branch of the county, and sits to the left. He was asked by Tim Boyd, who voted. Tim Boyd voted. Finally, he voted against the plant, but Tim Boyd asked Jim Coppinger, Mayor Coppinger, what is your perspective? And I think it's important here to consider what Jim Coppinger says about the plant. He is for it. He says we're a very wealthy county, and we're a very blessed county. He says if it doesn't, he says if it doesn't go there, it's got to go somewhere. Okay, so he sees the necessity of having a new treatment facility somewhere. And there are problems already with lawsuits. The assembled host heard about the prospect of the litigation over a TVA deed from 1969 that appears to put limits on a special warranty, warranty deed that puts limits on the property. Mayor Coppinger said, well, there already are lawsuits because of over spillage by pumping stations and pipes of the WWTA. So we have these overflow problems. Something has to be done, and the department, the state environmental department, will. What did he say? I lost my note, that page of my notes there, but he is for it because there has to be growth in the county, and the mayor wants there to be that growth here. And here it is. He says Tim Boyd. Okay, Tim Boyd voted finally. He initially voted to pass on that, but he voted finally against the plant. And he said you can't guarantee no smell, like there's no guarantee when you go to the airport ticket counter. There's no guarantee that can be given by the clerk there that the jet won't crash. There's no guarantee. He's very sympathetic to the critics of the plant, and so Tim Boyd joined the no side after having not giving his position initially. Now, among those who voted for the plant, David Sharp, he said it's the prime spot. This was a rezoning matter. He says he thinks highly of the fact that this is a public utility. It's not a private utility. It is a public utility, and he wants the wastewater treatment authority to continue to help and encourage growth in the county, and also growth of customer service of that utility, which has in many regards a very bad reputation for public relations and marketing. It has a very bad image. He says the site is a prime spot for some kind of facility. And let's see, Sabrina Smedley, she is, I'm not quite sure why Sabrina Smedley voted against it, because she said that the problems of not having a wastewater treatment plant there has cost her, among other things, it cost her $1 million real estate deal because there was no capacity to build real estate in that area. She said 32% of the growth of the next 10 years will be in that area. Well, I'm not sure if that estimate accounts for there being a wastewater treatment plant, or if it assumes that there's not. Can you have growth if there's not a wastewater facility? Well, she voted against. She joined the no votes in her tallying, and she said also this was interesting that of the four, there are apparently four parties that have some kind of interest in buying this nonprofit organization, which is WWTA, and making a profit of it. She had some kind of confidential conversation with one party, and whose members told her that they could build a plant sooner than 6 to 7 years, which is the time frame for construction. But what happens if the WWTA is sold? What would happen to rates? Rates, of course, are controlled by the state commission on rates that allow for profit. So she says she will vote no, and the reason that she's voting no is she said that there are too many questions. She said that it's a shame that communication has not been better. Well, it seems to me that there's been quite a bit of communication, but somehow this is what she's offering as a reason for voting against that plant. There was a kind of a summary made of on the side of the WWT at the beginning from Scott McDonald, the engineer, and he said it's the property values. The property values are not in danger if this plant goes in, or they would not have been in danger. Septics seem to be at capacity. There already are problems with septics leaking into the river. Growth has to be anticipated. If you're going to have growth of people building houses, building shopping centers, shopping malls, maybe small factories, etc., in the north part of the county, that you have to have that kind of support. And as regarding a buyout of the proposal, a buyout of the utility, he said, let's see, no one has approached the WWTA with a request for a proposal, and there are no requests for proposals for the purchase of that utility that are out. So it remains in the hands of the people who give you my listener that good treatment, right, as customers. Now, there was one question that came up. I don't know that it had a real influence on the commissioners, and that was from an attorney. His name is Cavett. And Mr. Cavett, John Cavett, said that there was a kind of a shadow of claim on the land from TVA, whose deed is 1969 and has a control on this property. And Mr. Cavett said that it would surely be litigated by parties who have some interest in this property through this warranty. Apparently, neighbors could, if this plant were to be built, could claim objection and claim a legal interest in the property that would be bought by WWTA, about 150 acres. They could claim some interest through this TVA deed. A very tenuous argument, but in law, things sometimes that seem very tenuous and very abstract have remarkable claim on the judges and how the judges rule how rights are to be weighed among themselves. He said that the beneficiaries of the restriction could be neighbors who have a right to sue to enforce the restriction and the easement. There could be he said that those provisions which were highlighted in yellow on the screen, all capital letters, very old looking documents, photocopied, all capital letters, and terribly annoying, I think, as an editor. These provisions could be interpreted by a court as effectively as a ban on the site use. I don't think that consideration of the legal question, which was very technical, seemingly very technical and somewhat arcane, had a real claim on the attention of the county commission. And my name is David Toulis, and the number is 800-8949, 800-8949. If you have some word about this, do feel free to call in, or if you have some word about the demand by Warren Mackey, the county commissioner, Dr. Warren Mackey, the academician, I think he's retired now from the professoriate, involving himself in real estate management. That Officer Blake Kilpatrick should be fired. He demanded that he should be fired, and the people who were here, Huerta County Commission for this cause all stood, and then as their comments were being delivered, they turned their back on the commission. They all turned their back on the commission, and then walked out when they were finished. They all had restricted time to speak, but and one man, Kevin Muhammad, gave his 3 minutes to Brandon Woodruff to finish what he had to say, and then they all stormed out. Not stormed out. They all quietly filed out. This is David Toulis, and the number is 800-894-9. Another police breakout, and that is in Chattanooga. There is a story heard last night by the city council of a very abusive encounter, the details of which I'm kind of foggy on, and I'd like to know more. David Toulis, Chattanooga Radio.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
A 5-year-old child left alone on a special services bus Friday night for a reported 13 minutes. Reports say a required head count didn't happen. The child fell asleep on the bus and was left behind. The driver has since been suspended. Surveillance video shows the child figuring out how to open the doors to the bus before he got an adult to help him. A woman was hit by a car on Wilcox Boulevard. CPD officers and EMS workers rushed to stabilize the victim. She's since been hospitalized in serious condition. The driver of the car that hit her stayed on scene until police got there. And Hamilton County Schools' winter break begins tomorrow. The break lasts until the 2nd of January. Also on break is road construction around the state of Tennessee. Temporary road closures will reopen throughout the volunteer state as construction workers get the week off. Some long-term closures may stay in place due to safety reasons. Val St. John for Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Action News now.
Oh, it can happen to anyone. Flat tire, overheated engine, or just a clackety-clack, and now you're on the side of the road. No worries, because Doug Yates Towing and Recovery is there 24 hours a day for you. That's right, 24-hour-a-day emergency roadside assistance. And you don't have to accept who your insurance company or your road assistance provider sends you. At Doug Yates Towing and Recovery, we want you off the road as safely and soon as possible. So they'll be there in a jiffy. Doug Yates Towing and Recovery with 24-hour emergency roadside service. Call 800-407-2371. That's 800-407-2371. Online, yateswrecker.com. That's yateswrecker.com. On Facebook at Doug Yates Towing and Recovery, LLC. Doug Yates Towing and Recovery. We don't want your arms and legs, just your toes. Doug Yates Towing and Recovery is a Nooga Radio 92.7 First Responder Friday sponsor. To our first responders, Doug Yates Towing and Recovery says thank you.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7.
Jeff Styles.
25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. Sean Hannity, CBS Radio News. David Toulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. NASCAR, live on YouTube and Facebook.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
Your home is a constant work in progress. Repaint the walls? Yeah, easy enough. Leaky faucet? There's a video for that. But roof repair? You might want some help. That's where Chattanooga Roofing Contractors come in. They have 3 generations of roofing excellence you can count on. Leave the ladder in the garage. Go to chatroofing.com. That's chatroofing.com for Chattanooga Roofing Contractors, a roofing company you can trust.
I'm always watching the Travel Channel. There was this one episode shot in the Mediterranean one night. It caught my eye. And the food, wow, definitely wanted to try some of that. Luckily, I didn't need to go halfway around the world. I found Olive Branch Mediterranean Foods right here in East Ridge. East Ridge. They were telling me how the menu's made fresh daily. It's authentic and it's so delicious. Your next culinary trip, not halfway around the world. It's right here, waiting for you at home.
Visit Olive Branch Mediterranean Foods, 3992 Ringgold Road.
Man, you sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah, I worked with my dad on his truck all the time. Just one more bolt to go.
Yeah, wrong bolt. Today's truck ain't your daddy's truck. For repairs on today's vehicles, you need Amco Transmission and Total Car Care of Chattanooga on Lee Highway. Stay on the road, not in the garage. Amco Transmission on Lee Highway. Get it done the right way. The Thompson Pet way. Yeah, I just put that anywhere.
Hey folks, Jeff Stiles here, talk radio host and infamous technophobe. But I got to tell you, this Facebook Live that Nuga Radio does, it makes sense to me. It really does. Now, we're at 92.7 on the FM dial, but really where you need to go is nugaradio.com and just do the streaming audio, 8 to 10 a.m. The first hour is mostly just me just throwing commentary on top of the news. The second hour is me frustrating and irritating you beyond all belief. nugaradio.com. Don't miss it. Every weekday.
Expect some high clouds but dry weather out there for your afternoon. Not bad. Highs 55 to 57. Tonight, clouds thickening. Some showers moving in after midnight. Lows lower to middle 40s. Wet and cool for Thursday with more showers pushing in. Highs only near 50 with a few lingering showers for Friday as well. Celebrate Christmas and the New Year with All-Star Fireworks in Calhoun, Georgia, with the best selection and lowest prices around. That's All-Star. Exit 312 off I-75, 3 miles west toward Rome on Highway 53. And I'm Storm Gene 12, Chief Meteorologist, Master 4.
The radio 92.7.
Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Toulis.
David Toulis here. Want you to hear a word or two from Dean Morehouse. He is overseeing the group North Hamilton County United for Responsible Growth, and he's just come out of a county commission meeting where the commission voted 6-3 in favor of his argument against a $45 million outlay for a wastewater treatment plant in the Ooltewah area off of Mahan Gap Road. Dean, tell my listener what happened this morning.
Well, our county commissioner, Chester Bankston, made a motion to deny the site. And after lengthy discussion, hearing from the applicant as well as from the opposition, the county commission ruled in our favor. We felt like we had sufficient evidence to get that ruling in our favor. David, you and I talked before the meeting began. This particular site would be an environmental nightmare. 28.4 acres of wetlands, emerging wetlands, less than 3,000 feet from the site. 60 to 75% of the property is located either in a floodplain or flood zone. There wasn't ample access to the site. There were just so many issues. To the average person, it was a no-brainer. The one portion of the deed, when TVA sold the property, they acquired property in the 30s when they were erecting Chickamauga Dam. And in 1947, they sold those properties. And certain properties, not all, but certain properties, they restricted uses for the protection of the waterways and reservoir. And this particular site was situated on a portion of that restricted land.
Well, I have a question for you,
and,
Dean.
Let
me ask you a question about just backing up. You mentioned, and we saw photographs of the sort of flooding in the area, but isn't it good though to have a wastewater treatment plant in a low place, because that implies that you have water and you have the use of gravity to bring the water and the sewage being treated to the plant as opposed to having to pump it. That's the argument for this plant is that it was in a low place. It was like the drain at the bottom of a tub. They're perfectly located for the area of service.
Yes, you're right, David. It's a drainage basin, and north, east, and west. They were building this plant to serve 3,300 existing customers, which would be south of this drainage basin. So that went against their site plan because all existing customers, the sewage would have to be pumped to this plant.
And all other proposals would have much more pumping activity, many more pump stations and storage units than this particular site, Dean Morehouse.
Yeah, well, according to their site plan, at this point, we don't know how much research they've done on the other sites. There's another point I'd like to make, David. It's just typical of government invading the privacy of people. This tried to come in under the radar. You heard Commissioner Baker ask the question, when did we learn? A sign was posted on a Thursday prior to a vote on Wednesday to purchase this property. There had been no formal meetings. There had been no public input. It was a total surprise. And, it would have been a done deal. The county would have bought, had the public not intervened, a piece of property, a $3 million piece of property that was not suitable for the intended purpose. So, our challenge as North Ooltewah United for Responsible Growth now is to work with WWTA to find a remote site that is suitable that will serve our future.
In other words, to find a site, Dean Morehouse, that is near maybe 400 families as opposed to 3,000 families.
Yeah, well, 3,500 families. And, the mayor says there are no such sites. Well, there are sites that would have significantly less impact. And to that point, David, and that was a part of the argument I wanted to present today as new evidence, WWTA had contacted 5 of the 9 parties Mark Harrison had identified in and offered to purchase their property so that, 1, they could gain access to the property, maybe, or 2, they were genuinely concerned about the health of the individual.
Let me ask you, let me just quickly change the topic here. Dean, hang on just a second. I got just a second. Let me ask you a question about the idea of growth. The people who support, the 3 commissioners who supported this said yes, because we have to have growth, and only with Seward's support can you have growth of new neighborhoods, new shopping centers, new factories, and so on. What is your can Hamilton County grow as these proponents wanted to grow without this plan?
Certainly, David. I mean, probably a third of the service area is not on sewer at all. It's on septic tanks. Of course, they will argue that old septic tanks, pollute underground water. Well, not with E. coli. I'm not an engineer. I don't know. I can't speak to that. What I feel they're referring to is high density development. By high density, I'm talking about 6 properties per acre instead of 1 home per acre. And, arguably to do extremely high density development, you would need sewer service, not a sewer plant. And there's a difference,
And service would require piping sewage 30 miles or so. That's the Knox and Ben gets.
I mean, that's common. You look at Nashville or Knoxville or any city that's growing. They're pumping. They don't have a pump station in every community. Some subdivisions are doing, as you heard the engineer say, what they refer to a mini drip system. And I don't understand the concept of that. I would suppose it's a large septic tank type deal. But there are builders and developers who are installing those drip systems, which would contain the entire development. So, that's an option for the future.
Well, listen, Dean Morehouse, thank you so much for chatting with me. We're talking with Dean Morehouse. Dean, again, thank you very much, sir, for chatting with my listener and me here on the David Tula Show at Nuga Radio. Thank you, sir.
David, always enjoyed listening to you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to you and all your listeners.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. That's Dean Morehouse from the group that won the day this morning at the County Commission with a vote against the wastewater treatment authority proposal for a $45 million plant off of a road in amid neighbors who most all of them objected to it being there. And we are here, David Toulis. My show is about local economy, the free market. I argue that near is better than far, that small is better than big, that simple is better than complex. And also in the footnotes at 5-point type, I suggest that personal is better than corporate and physical than abstract. And the number is 800-8949, 800-8949. And I wanted to find out a little bit more about a garage. Now, I've gotten to know some garages here in town, but not long ago, I met a man new in the country. His name is Euler Obed, and he runs a garage on, is it Rossville Boulevard, Euler?
It's on 2915 Roosevelt Boulevard.
What kind of what do you do there at your shop?
We have fixed the cars, like on the Hondas,
Toyotas. Okay.
Yeah.
Japanese cars only.
Yes.
Okay.
We try the different car, but we start on the Japanese.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Now you've been you're an immigrant to this country. How long have you been in the United States, Euler?
Well, maybe like 20 years.
Do you have a wife and children here?
No, I don't have here. I'm single.
You're single. Okay, so you left family, maybe parents, brothers and sisters in Guatemala.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, what brought you to the United States, and how did you get to Chattanooga area?
Well, I was in Florida, almost 10 years, and then I come back in my country. When I come back in 2004.
Well, you were in Florida for 10 years, then you went back to Guatemala.
Yes.
And what happened? How long were you there, and what happened there?
4 years.
What were you doing there?
I work with my father and the farms. We grow coffee there.
Does your father, does he own property, or does he just manage property or serve property?
Owner.
He's the owner. Okay, so he had coffee beans and what other crops?
Coffee, we grow cane, like a sugar cane, but we make it different, like a sugar.
And so you were there for how long in Guatemala?
For 4 years.
And why did you decide to come back to this country?
I come back because when I was here, some people like lend me money, like almost 10,000, and then I call the guys, can you pay me? He say no, and then I come back to recover my money, but I never paid.
So you were the one who lent the money. Mm-hmm. You came back to try to collect.
Yeah,
okay.
But they never paid me.
They didn't pay.
Yeah.
And so in the meantime, though, you started a garage. Is that what you did, or did you?
No,
do other
because when I started in Florida, I trying to make my paper for immigration paper, and when I have my paper, I come back to Chattanooga because another brother is here.
One brother.
Yeah.
Okay. And how many brothers and sisters do you have?
Right here, I have 2 brothers. In my country, 2 brothers and a sister.
So 2 brothers and a sister here.
No, only 2 brothers here.
Okay, 2 brothers here. And the sister?
And a sister in Guatemala and 2 brothers in Guatemala.
Well, how say something about the garage business. There are many garages and they're competitive. How do you stay open every day? How do you stand apart from other garages that are also looking for customers?
We start to open 8 a.m. Sometimes we close 5 or 7. It's the same time. If we have more jobs, we are working late.
So, but how does the work come in? How do people decide to come to Obed Garage and not some other garage? Why do they pick you? How did you find this business?
I don't understand very well. But
okay. He's speaking in his second language, and I'm asking you to explain the economics of the garage business. Well, so you have enough business to open up the next day, right? To pay the people who work for you. Do you do the work yourself? You walk into our studio smelling like a car. You smell very oily, and you smell very much of the garage and the mechanic.
Yeah.
Do you have other people who are with you who have the same sort of emanations, or are you do you do all the work and also take the money? And
I work for my another brother. He tries to fix the cars, like painted cars. We work together with him. He do it for the painting, I do for the mechanic. But sometimes when I need help, I find somewhere to work with me. Yeah.
But I understand that since I'm an owner too, a business owner, it's very hard to find people to work for me. Do you have trouble finding people who are reliable to work in Obed Garage on Rossville Boulevard?
Yes, it's very difficult because some people that need to fix the mechanic need to have experience. Some people don't have too much experience. This is the problem. When I 3 months ago, I was having another guys, but he drunk, and then they don't have a paper they sent to Guatemala, and then I don't have a mechanic for work with.
Well, I didn't quite understand that. So you had a man who had problems with his papers. So he was a Guatemalan too.
Yeah.
Okay. So he knew cars to some degree. And how long did he work for you? And what exactly happened to him?
Well, he was drunk on the weekend. And then,
drunk on the weekend.
Yeah. And then the police take him, and then when he checked the paper and have paper, they sent to my country. It's very difficult to find another guys because he's good mechanic.
So is it fair to say Euler Obed of Obed Garage on Rossville Boulevard, you're an immigrant here in this country. Is it fair to say that you're looking for a mechanic to work for you in your shop?
Yes, I need to looking for a mechanic, but I need to speak in Portuguese because the customer is only Spanish.
You say mostly Spanish customers?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. And you're serving a market there of people who want to work, be served by people of their own tongue, maybe of their own country. But of course, those who come to your shop they may be Mexicans, right? They may be Hondurans, right? They may have come from Colombia, but they all speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So listen, anything else my listener needs to know about you? Do you like this country, or is this country a hard place in which to live?
No, I like this country because they have when you're working, you have to work in. If you're not working, that's not good. I like this country because they have more opportunity than my country.
Does this country seem? Would you say this is a free country? Do we have freedoms in this country that you don't have in Guatemala? You do. What is wrong with Guatemala? What kind of government does it have? What kind of police does it have?
All in my country, because they're like a president or the other government, they not working. They not take care for the people. They only about himself. They take the money and they not work for the other guys needed. No good.
This is David Tulis, and caller, you're live on the air with me, and also. Man who runs the garage, name is Euler Obed. Do you have a question for either of us, or do you want to change the topic? What's on your mind?
No, I love it. I just want to know your feelings toward a border wall or entering the country legally, and also your feelings toward maybe the U.S. arming rebels against, let's say, illegal governments or illegal activity in your country I don't know why countries just don't overthrow their leaders and institute a republic like America. Everybody wants to come here. Just emulate it. But, the question I have is, what are your feelings towards this whole movement or the pushback against people just walking into the country? Do you think there should be a legal process? And do you think the people that come to this country should try to change it back to the country they left because they hated it to enjoy the economic freedoms we have in America? Answer one or all of those questions, and I'll listen on the radio.
Okay, thanks, Mike. That's a lot of questions. Can you answer maybe one or two of those questions, Euler? Or the question is about the wall. The caller's wanting to know is should there be a wall on the country, and everybody has to kind of file in one by one and talk to government bureaucrats, or what do you say about I guess he's asking about the objection some Americans have to strangers and visitors in this country. They don't want more Mexicans. They don't want more Hondurans and Guatemalans to be here for some reason.
Well, I like this country, but the problem is many people not working here. Many people like they drunk or something, make a mistake.
They don't work.
Yeah.
Many non-working Americans.
When you come to work, you have to respect where your boss or different, like going to the police, everything, you know. If you don't respect, you can't stay here.
Well, do you find that Americans you meet are somehow don't like you, or Americans you meet, like white people like me, do they dislike you because you're an immigrant, or what?
Some where have a problem because I drive a tow truck. Some people they don't like it when they see the window, like Spanish guys. Sometimes they stop on the front of the tow truck, and then do some different. I don't know. Listen what they say, but they talk about the Spanish. They say 2 or 3 times they listen. We don't like more Latinos here sent to wherever country they come.
Well, what should Americans know about immigrants who are here? You said that in your country the government is corrupt, and you suggested that the police are corrupt also. And is it kind of dangerous?
Yeah, danger. The police is danger because sometimes they have another group like criminal guys, but they stolen the business. And then the police, they don't do nothing.
So you say they're criminal businesses and the police don't do anything?
No. Even because they pay the police.
I see.
Yeah, this is the problem.
Well, Obed, thank you so much for being on my show. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't speak very well English. I don't understand very well, but I say I like it, this country. I say because I go to the church. I'm be thankful that everybody go to this church because Jesus loves everybody, you know. Thank you.
That is a very good thing to hear. And we've been hearing from Obed, who runs Obed's Garage on Rossville Boulevard. One more time, the address.
2915 on Rossville Boulevard.
And will take care of you. He's a man from Guatemala, the hardest working immigrant from Guatemala. I have heard repeatedly, the hardest working people here are from Guatemala. David Tulis, Nugget Radio. And I've got some important messages and CBS News now.
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
A 5-year-old child left alone on a special services bus Friday night for a reported 13 minutes. Reports say a required head count didn't happen. The child fell asleep on the bus and was left behind. The driver has since been suspended. Surveillance video shows the child figuring out how to open the doors to the bus before he got an adult to help him. A woman was hit by a car on Wilcox Boulevard. CPD officers and EMS workers rushed to stabilize the victim. She's since been hospitalized in serious condition. The driver of the car that hit her stayed on scene until police got there. And Hamilton County Schools' winter break begins tomorrow. The break lasts until the 2nd of January. Also on break is road construction around the state of Tennessee. Temporary road closures will reopen throughout the volunteer state as construction workers get the week off. Some long-term closures may stay in place due to safety reasons. Val St. John for Nugget Radio. News Talk 92.7. Action News now.
Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. on Nugget Radio 92.7 FM.
Nugget Radio 92.7. Nugget Radio, Chattanooga weather.
Expect some high clouds with dry weather out there for your afternoon. Not bad. Highs 55 to 57. Tonight, clouds thickening. Some showers moving in after midnight. Lows lower to middle 40s. Wet and cool for Thursday with more showers pushing in. Highs only near 50 with a few lingering showers for Friday as well. Celebrate Christmas and the New Year with All-Star Fireworks in Calhoun, Georgia, with the best selection and lowest prices around. That's All-Star. Exit 312 off I-75, 3 miles west toward Rome on Highway 53. And I'm Storm Team 12, Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ford.
Nugget Radio 92.7.
If you've been in an accident, call Warren and Griffin. Chattanooga, it's 423-265-HURT. And in Dalton, it's 706-529-HURT. Don't hurt any more than you have to. Call C. Mark Warren or John Mark Griffin. Voted best of the best last 4 years in a row.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. This is your sandwich speaking. Yeah, your sandwich. And you know, you can't find me any place but the Mad Philly Sandwich Shop. Mad Philly Sandwich Shop, just off 153 on Shaliford Road. It's in the little plaza. Hey, check out these buns. Yeah, they're Amorosa. All the way from Philly. So bite me. You want a real Philly cheesesteak? Check out my meat. Throw some cheese on it and grilled onions. Oh, yeah. Now that's what I'm talking about. Only at the Mad Mad Philly Sandwich Shop, where you'll always get the real taste of a Philadelphia cheesesteak. Plus hoagies, burgers, sandwiches, salads, fresh cut fries, tater tots, and other stuff. Mad Philly Sandwich Shop, just off 153 on Shaliford Road, right across from Mountain View Service Center. It's in the little plaza. Hey, come on, we're waiting for you here. So just shut up and eat it.
Even if you like your job, there are some things that can drive you nuts, like the anonymous coward who steals your lunch from the break room fridge, or maybe Tyler, the IT guy, who gives you that condescending look when you tell him that your computer is acting up again, as if somehow it's your fault. You put up with these clowns every single day. But what happens when you've had enough? That's the day you decide to retire. At least that's the hope, right? But will you be able to retire? Can you afford to retire? That's why you need to talk to Ron and Christy Adams at One Family Financial. They can't do anything about Cody, that moron who heats up fish in the microwave, but they can strategize with you on how to get the most out of your 401k or pension, how to grow your money without losing your shirt in the market, and how to help make your money last in retirement. Talk to Ron and Christy today about whether you'll be ready to retire when you finally had it with seeing Ethan walk out of the bathroom again without washing his hands. Gross. Call Ron and Christy Adams at One Family Financial, 423-710-2009, 423-710-2009.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7.
Jeff Styles.
25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. Sean Hannity. CBS Radio News. David Toulis, streaming strong at
WPLZ HD4 Ooltewah, W224AZ Chattanooga.
Serving Chattanooga.
Broadcasting live from the center of the universe, the Tennessee Valley's most listened to news talk station.
Luca Radio 92.7.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by ZipRecruiter.
I'm Jim Shenevy. The Federal Reserve's Policymaking Open Market Committee wrapping up its latest two-day session, widely expected to move interest rates higher, what would be the fourth rate hike so far this year, and would come despite President Trump calling it a bad idea, especially with the recent stock market sell-offs. All three major indexes now in correction, and we are hearing right now the Fed is going to go ahead and raise short-term interest rates. Right now, the Dow is up 183, but it's fast on the decline. More from CBS News business consultant Jill Schlesinger.
This is one of the meetings where the Federal Reserve officials project what they think the economy is going to look like over the next 1, 2, and 3 years. And that could be very important, giving us some clues about whether or not the central bank will raise rates again next year, or whether they might pause, take a couple of meetings off, and not do anything.
And again on the Dow, it's now up 104. Job done. That's the claim from President Trump when it comes to defeating ISIS in Syria. He today announced plans to put all U.S. troops out of the country. Correspondent Cammie McCormick.
The Pentagon said today the coalition has liberated ISIS-held territory and U.S. troops have begun returning home. But military leaders have said repeatedly in the past that they were worried about an ISIS resurgence, and that was the reason to remain. And the White House had said troops would stay to contain Iran's influence in the region. There's also the issue of U.S.-backed Kurdish forces, which did most of the fighting and now reportedly see this decision as a stab in the back.
Leading Democrats say they will support a Republican-authored stopgap funding bill to keep government funded past Friday and avoid a partial government shutdown. Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway.
This is all breaking news. In other words, what the Congress is going to put before him, a short-term CR that goes through the February 8th, keeps the government up and running. But that doesn't mean the president is backing down from a central promise, not a campaign promise, a promise as president of the United States and our commander-in-chief to keep us safe.
A Republican stopgap measure basically kicks the can down the road until February 8th. That's when Democrats will have their house in order, literally. The Senate has voted 87-12 to pass a criminal justice bill that addresses controversial sentencing of nonviolent drug offenders. CBS's Nancy Cordes.
It is a comprehensive piece of legislation that aims to address overcrowding in prisons while making the system fairer for nonviolent drug offenders. It, for example, eases the 3 strikes rule by reducing a mandatory life sentence for some drug offenders down to 25 years.
And on Wall Street, the Dow is now up 99 and the NASDAQ up 14. This is CBS News.
ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter's technology finds qualified candidates for businesses of all sizes. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free.
I'm Tiffany Haddish, and I'm a Groupon super user. There's still time to save on thousands of holiday experiences with Groupon. Come on, you've already got the free Groupon app, so get smart with your money and act now. Need a great instant gift? Act now and save big on experiences like a spa package for mom, concert tickets for dad, and go-kart racing for the kids. Millions of people are doing it. Why aren't you? Save more so you can gift more. Act now. Groupon.
Gold Bond salutes all you fixers out there. Fixers of wobbly chairs, squeaky stairs, and drippy faucets. Folks who can fix just about anything, except dry, cracked hands.
Whoa, that's bad. Man.
Say hello to Gold Bond Cracked Skin Cream. More than a lotion, it precisely fills, soothes, and protects rough, cracked fingers and knuckles. 91% said cracked skin felt smoother in one day.
Yep, feeling good.
Gold Bond Cracked Skin Cream. Find it at First Aid at Walgreens.
A Broadway songwriter has died. Deborah Rodriguez reports.
It was the rock and roll soundtrack for the age of Aquarius. Composer Galt McDermott, who wrote the score for Hair, the musical, has died. He began his career as a church organist and a choir master in his native Canada and went on to win Grammys for his work, as well as a Tony for Broadway's Two Gentlemen of Verona. His family says Galt McDermott died at his home in Staten Island, New York. He was 89. Deborah Rodriguez, CBS News.
The plants are known to clear the air and their surroundings by breathing in carbon dioxide and exhaling oxygen. Scientists have modified one plant to have it do more. A team of researchers at the University of Washington using gene editing on pothos ivy to have it scrub the air of hazardous particles, including known carcinogens, benzene, and chloroform. Jim Shenevy, CBS News.
In
3, 2,
Chattanooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Tiffany Howard from Conyers, Georgia was in Chattanooga on vacation back in October, and she says at the city council meeting she was wrongfully arrested and brutalized by the local police department. She shared her harrowing story in which she describes being put in the back of a police car with serious injuries and denied treatment. Several players on Cleveland's high school basketball team were suspended following what the school calls inappropriate behavior, but school officials were quick to jump in and say that it was not sexual assault. The basketball program continues. The 12 were suspended for 5 days. Joshua Smith, the director of Closed Door Entertainment, a theater company, was suspended from his position as choir director at Harrison United Methodist Church. He was charged with 5 counts of aggravated statutory rape. Police say the victims are older than 13, but still underaged. Prosecutors announced all charges against local rapper Charles Toney were dropped. Chattanooga Radio News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
Expect some high clouds, but dry weather out there for your afternoon. Not bad. Highs 55 to 57. Tonight, clouds thickening. Some showers moving in after midnight. Lows lower to middle 40s. Wet and cool for Thursday with more showers pushing in. Highs only near 50 with a few lingering showers for Friday as well. Celebrate Christmas and the New Year with All-Star Fireworks in Calhoun, Georgia, with the best selection and lowest prices around. That's All-Star. Exit 312 off I-75, 3 miles west toward Rome on Highway 53. And I'm Storm Team 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ford.
The radio 92.7.
Have a car wreck in Tennessee? Why hire an Alabama billboard lawyer for your car wreck? You'll never, ever meet that guy. Warren and Griffin work here, live here. You get to know them. You have a car wreck? Call Warren and Griffin. 265-4878, 265-4878. And let me tell you, they've got a killer thing going on right now, the Hands-Free Tennessee petition to save lives and make our roads safer. Put down your cell phones and just drive.
If you could wish for anything this Christmas, what would you wish for? Well, a Saudi Daisy family wished that $25,000 in credit card debt would disappear. Well, guess who got an early Christmas present? Listen up, y'all. I'm Ben Phillips with Home Rate Mortgage. I'm in the business of saving people money. And if you want to save money around Christmas time, pick that cell phone up right now. 805-9100. You're not going to believe how much you can save. Home Rate Mortgage just cleaned an installation manager's chimney, ridding his family of $25,000 in credit cards right before Santa delivers presents. The best part is Santa's going to be a little more merrier this Christmas because this Saudi Daisy family is saving $1,100 per month. And you can do it too. So give us a call today. It's time to get on the sleigh. 805-9100 or homeremortgage.com.
Turn a house into a home rate mortgage.
The station you hear everywhere.
Cougar Radio 92.7.
Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Toulis.
David Toulis. I don't waste time. I don't take guff. I don't waste a moment on things like sports and trivia. And I read serious books. I read the Bible, and I read a good deal of law. And I read law because I'm trying to find out. Law is a very moral thing. Law is all about morals. What is right? What is wrong? What is required? What is prohibited? These are questions that God talks about all the time. The whole Bible is full of these this framework of right and wrong. There is antithesis. There's A is not B, right? B is not A. And the modern mind is very synthetical. Following Hegel, it may not know anything. It may not agree on any external standard of morality or law, and it'll always arrive at some kind of totalitarianism or other dressed up, either racist totalitarianism or an ideological kind, as in the Soviet Union. With this various dressings of humanism, but I read a lot of law, and I'm drawn to cranky people. I'm drawn to unusual people, and some of my friends are ones who have been convicted of crimes. They're criminals, and they're really just free people who challenge the system in some way or other. One man I want you to hear from is named Dick Marple. Dick Marple is an octogenarian, which means if you're in Red Bank that he's in his 80s. He's been elected, I think, now 5 times to the New Hampshire General Assembly, and he has a bill in the hopper in the new session coming up, the 2019 session. The bill that very similar to one he had put before a vote last year in 2018, where he got 44 legislators to vote for it, and 100 apparently abstained. This is a very unusual point to make because it's a freer state than most in New Hampshire. Why did they abstain? Well, the reason this vote is important is because it is about a fundamental right, and it is a right of free movement of your person from point A to point B. So, Dick Marple, tell my listener about your legislation that you have before the General Assembly you have it before the House and probably in a committee right now, or will be assigned to a committee. A bill on the right of travel. What is it all about? What are you trying to straighten out, Dick Marple?
No, what's the question?
What is it you're trying to straighten out with your bill? What problem are you addressing with your right to travel bill?
Well, it's the jurisdiction of government. Government only has jurisdiction over the commercial use of the highways, and that people are not being conveyed that information. Now, everything has to have a foundation. This foundation goes back to the mid-'60s, when the Uniform Commercial Code became the supreme authority over all other statutes. The reason that the Uniform Commercial Code was adopted by all the states was to have uniformity in the administration of commercial enterprise. And since Congress has exclusive control over interstate commerce, Congress had to do something to make available to the interstate commerce of the people some means of a monetary policy after LBJ took the silver out of circulation. So there's no lawful money in circulation. Since there's no lawful money in circulation, Congress enacted the Tax Lien Act of 1966, which is the foundation for the Uniform Commercial Code, which is mandated. In fact, Internal Revenue has to operate under the protocol of the UCC. All states have it now. And the UCC has a superior authority over any other statute that it may have been enacted. You have it in Tennessee. We have statutes here which are not, in other words, they're not in accordance with the UCC. So what we have is competing statutes. And the statute in New Hampshire is RSA 382A-1-109. Now, that is, the automobile is defined and classified as consumer goods, which are non-taxable. Now, if you buy an automobile and you have of course, you should receive it, but you don't, because what happens is the corporate government has an agreement with the automobile dealers to take the deed to your property, which is actually an act of criminal tort called conversion. Because that deed, which in the automobile industry they call it a certificate of origin, that's actually the deed to your property, and you're being denied that when the government seizes it and then offers you the opportunity to enter into a contract and give up your constitutional inherent rights for a privilege. In other words, when you apply to the government for a license or a registration, you're paying a fee. Well, that's the consideration of a contract, and what you're doing is you're giving up an existing right to get a lesser opportunity as a privilege, and the privilege is to operate commercially. Now, if you buy an automobile and then you become a Uber operator, you're tied in with Uber, well, then your automobile has been reclassified as a commercial vehicle because it's being used on the highways for profit or gain. And government has total control over the commercial use of the highways. So that's what it is. It's an understanding of what is the classification. While the Supreme Court in New Hampshire, Chief Justice William Grimes, his name was, you can bring it up on your computer. Just put in 109 and then NH for New Hampshire reports, and then page number is 386. And on page 386, you'll see that Justice Grimes confirms the fact that the UCC 382A 1-109 is classified consumer goods, and consumer goods cannot be taxed.
So, all right. So, what's happening is, we're talking with Dick Marple. Hang on a second. We're talking with Dick Marple. Hang on, Dick. You're saying that because at the point of sale of every car, whether it's new or used, the dealer transfers the title, the actual title, to the state, and has you go to the state to apply for not the title but a certificate of title. The holder of the title is the state in almost everybody's car. So the owner of all cars on the roads is the state, and the state then pretends that all activity in cars is in fact commercial activity, that the car is not a car or an automobile, it's a motor vehicle, and so somehow through these systems, the state gets jurisdiction over private activity on the road, which is protected by the Constitution.
What the issue is, David, is the right to travel existed before governments were created. The Native American traveled on water with a canoe. He traveled on land, by horseback, or by foot. But the right to travel existed. So it's a constitutionally reserved right, which is embodied into the Constitution as a right, not a privilege. A privilege is to do something that would otherwise be unlawful. Well, it's not unlawful to travel. The only unlawfulness is when you use the public ways for commercial profit or gain. And if you use it, then you should be regulated by government.
Well, what does your bill do?
The issue is the difference between corporate jurisdiction and free jurisdiction of the use of, hey, the little lady that owns a car, goes to church, goes to meeting, go to whatever, back and forth to work. That is not a commercial endeavor.
She should not be licensed. She should not be required to have her car converted into a motor vehicle. She should not believe herself required to submit to the mandatory insurance law, you're saying.
That's correct.
And that's because she's exercising her rights.
Contract. But government cannot force you to engage in a contract. That's a constitutional violation. Article 1, Section 10. Article 1, Section 10 of your Constitution very clearly says no state shall, blah, 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 impair the obligation of a contract. It's a constitutional issue. You can't impair the obligation. Neither can the government force you into a contract.
We're talking with Dick Marple. Dick, what does your bill do? I mean, talk now about the specifics of what you're proposing in this language. It prints out at about 2.5 pages. What are the words on the page?
Let me ask you this. I sent you a copy of the amended bill that is going in January, which I highlighted in yellow the additions that I made to it to make it more forceful. Do you have that?
Well, the listener doesn't. Dick, the listener does not have this in front of him. So just tell me what's in your bill, please. Just tell me what's in it.
The introduction to the bill. I was going to have you read it if you have it.
Well, just you tell me what
because that really succinctly says exactly what the bill does.
Well, tell me what that is. What does the bill do? What is the argument?
Well, it refers to the fact that the Supreme Court has ratified the classification of the automobile as consumer goods, which is non-taxable. And there's millions of dollars that will be taken out of the pockets of my constituents by the municipalities to charge a fee on their automobiles that are, quote, registered. In other words, they got to pay a fee to the town before they can get their plates if they raise it. But they don't need plates unless they are operating in a commercial venue.
All right. In your bill, you have definitions. Of course, bills should have definitions. For example, automobile and motorcycle refers to self-propelled conveyance used for non-commercial travel. All right. What's a motor vehicle in the definitions of your bill? What is a motor vehicle? And how is a motor vehicle different, Dick Marple, from an automobile?
Well, what we're dealing with, David, is RICO for revenue. We have our government operating in violation of RICO statutes, and they're using RICO for revenue. It's to bring revenue in.
Racketeering, influence,
and by deprivation of information, that's exactly what it is. If the people knew that, hey, my automobile is house good, why am I being forced to register this and pay hundreds of dollars a year? Throughout the entire country, it's the same in every 49 other states. That's what's going on here. I just hope that other states, in fact, I've got Georgia, Oregon, California, and Florida. And Florida is picking up on it because I've got what should we say, a companion down there who happens to be a lawyer. In fact, I mentioned his name, I think, to you in a conversation before. And Mel Stamper, M-E-L, Melvin Stamper, S-T-A-M-P-E-R.
Well, let me get back to my question, Dick. The question I'm asking about definitions. Dick, we're talking
Fantastic.
about... okay, well, listen.
It's a college education.
Ornery. Okay, listen, Dick. The question I'm asking is about definitions. A motor vehicle is different from an automobile. A motor vehicle, as you say in your bill, is any self-propelled conveyance designed and used upon the public highways for profit or gain. So a car and an automobile are used by free people exercising their rights privately, right? Private business, private affairs, private concerns. And a motor vehicle is something that's used for profit or gain. So in Chattanooga, in Tennessee, cops always say, they always refer to the person behind the wheel as the driver and operator. And they always talk about motor vehicles as if every car, in fact, is involved in commerce. And yet they assume jurisdiction. They pretend they have it through Title 55 in our state. And they really don't. So your bill, I think, defines these distinctions. And so what happened? How does a cop in New Hampshire, if this bill passes, know whether a particular, let's say, an old Buick, a 1995 Buick, if that car is private or commercial? How does he know? And if your bill passes,
see, enforcement of the commercial statutes, there has to be probable cause for every stop that's made on the highway. Every stop that's made by enforcement has got to be probable cause. And probable cause is what? Are you speeding? Or, there's got to be probable cause.
Well, okay, speeding is not a crime, though. It's an offense in the traffic statute, but it's not a crime. So the cop sees someone speeding in New Hampshire, and he stops that person. So how does he know whether he has actual authority or not? Is there something he can see, or what does your bill do for that person in the car?
Well, if you read the bill, you'll see that there is reference to common law. And common law will be the sole and exclusive means of remedy for any of the violations that are alleged to have taken place. Common law there has to be an injured party. Who is the injured party if you're speeding? There's no injured party. So speeding is something that you have to prove that it was beyond reasonable and prudent use. And someone was damaged. Well, who was damaged? The corporate government? No, the corporate government can't be damaged. It has no feelings. It's nothing but a piece of paper, a charter. So the corporate government cannot be a party to, again, if you apply the logic, there's no injured party. So the common law deals with what is.
Well, you're not suggesting, Dick Marple, that cops in New Hampshire, if this bill passes, would not have authority to stop commercial speeders, right? If there's a delivery truck speeding 55 in a 40 zone, that person under the commercial statute really should be stopped because he is involving himself in a violation, and he is subject to the officer because the officer has commercial enforcement power. So you're not trying to stop that, are you? You're just trying to stop the private person from being touched by the cop on the road.
What it is to put the pig back in its pen. In other words, corporate government has extended its authority and jurisdiction beyond the commercial use of the highways, and by doing that, they have it's really fraudulent inducement of the general public to pay money for a right that they already have.
Well, do the cops in New Hampshire do this by law, or do they do it outside the law? Are they operating outside the statute, or is there a statute that allows them to operate seemingly outside the commercial statute? Is there some loophole that they've used to get to the private user in your state, or is it simply totally ultra vires outside the scope activity by the cops?
Well, the significant thing of the whole issue is the Uniform Commercial Code. The Uniform Commercial Code has classified the automobile as non-taxable consumer goods. I have 4 pages of stare decisis, which are court decisions, over 40 or 50 of them, of court decisions supporting exactly what I just said. The Uniform Commercial Code has superior authority over any other code. So you can have other codes which are neutralized by the Uniform Commercial Code, which is superior authority. Why? Because there's no lawful money. And that's why Congress had to enact the Tax Lien Act of 66 in order to provide for the Uniform Commercial Code to have superior authority. And the courts, including the Chief Justice here in the New Hampshire Supreme Court, that the UCC has classified the automobile as consumer goods.
Let me ask
untaxable.
You, Dick, let me ask you about this. There's no way in Tennessee that there's going to be anyone who would propose a bill like this. And you are proposing essentially a top-down solution. Get all the legislators, all the politicians to agree that, yeah, the people in New Hampshire have a right to travel, and there's been abuse of cops and troopers operating outside the statute. We're going to correct that by this bill, which gives clarification of what their actual authority is. I don't think that in Tennessee we will have anybody. The whole legal and political establishment, all the lawyers are for the system that we have. So let me ask you this: what are the prospects of using my method, which is a bottom-up method, a ground-up method of administrative notice? Have you thought anything about that? Is there any prospect in your mind that might work and be successful and free the people from harassing traffic stops?
Well, if you can do what you have been doing, and I commend you for doing it, because I did take a couple of looks at some of your internet that you've done in the Tennessee area, and I commend you for it, because it's only when the people awake from the fraudulent inducement that has been perpetrated on them by corporate government. See, corporate government doesn't have feelings. It is only all government today is corporate. It's all. In fact, if you look at title, and this is Title 28 of the United States Code. If you go to Title 28 USC and you put down 3002, that is definitions, and that's in the judiciary. And you go down to subparagraph 15, and it defines the United States a corporation. Well, it is a corporation, and corporations operate on a charter. And the state of Tennessee operating on a charter. State of New Hampshire, it's operating on a charter. Our charter is part 2 of our Constitution. The New Hampshire Constitution has 2 parts. The Bill of Rights, which is 39 articles in the first part, that is the sovereign citizens, if you want to call them citizens. In New Hampshire, they're called inhabitants. Article 30, we're defined as inhabitants. And as inhabitants, which has these specific definition, and only inhabitants can vote. But going back to, New Hampshire, our Constitution was in existence 5 years before we ratified the United States Constitution. And our compensation, I got to tell you this, our compensation as a member of the legislature is only $100 a year for mileage. So it's not money. We have the largest in the entire planet Earth on a per capita basis. It's a 435 in Congress. We have 400 in New Hampshire, plus 24 senators. So we have 424 on a per capita basis. We only got about 1,300,000 people in the state. We are the closest to the people and any other government in the entire planet Earth.
And Dick Marple, listen, thanks so much for talking with me. We've been talking with Dick Marple. Again, thank you.
Maybe 2,000 people.
Dick, thanks very much for chatting with my listener to me today. Thank you, Dick. We've been talking with Dick Marple, who is a legislator, a very ornery, crotchety legislator, kind of my type, in the New Hampshire legislature, and he's got a bill, and you can read about it only at Nuganomics.com. That's Nuganomics.com, describing my problem with policing here. David Tulis.
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news. Now.
A 5-year-old child left alone on a special services bus Friday night for a reported 13 minutes. Reports say a required head count didn't happen. The child fell asleep on the bus and was left behind. The driver has since been suspended. Surveillance video shows the child figuring out how to open the doors to the bus before he got an adult to help him. A woman was hit by a car on Wilcox Boulevard. CPD officers and EMS workers rushed to stabilize the victim. She's since been hospitalized in serious condition. The driver of the car that hit her stayed on scene until police got there. And Hamilton County Schools' winter break begins tomorrow. The break lasts until the 2nd of January. Also on break is road construction around the state of Tennessee. Temporary road closures will reopen throughout the volunteer state as construction workers get the week off. Some long-term closures may stay in place due to safety reasons. Val St. John for Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Action News now.
Oh, can happen to anyone. Flat tire, overheated engine, or just a clackety-clack and now you're on the side of the road. No worries, because Doug Yates Towing and Recovery is there 24 hours a day for you. That's right, 24-hour-a-day emergency roadside assistance. And you don't have to accept who your insurance company or your road assistance provider sends you. At Doug Yates Towing and Recovery, we want you off the road as safely and soon as possible. So they'll be there in a jiffy. Doug Yates Towing and Recovery with 24-hour emergency roadside service. Call 800-407-2371. That's 800-407-2371. Online, yateswrecker.com. That's yateswrecker.com. On Facebook at Doug Yates Towing and Recovery, LLC. Doug Yates Towing and Recovery. We don't want your arms and legs, just your toes. Doug Yates Towing and Recovery is a Nooga Radio 92.7 First Responder Friday sponsor. To our first responders, Doug Yates Towing and Recovery says thank you.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7.
Jeff Styles.
25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. Sean Hannity. CBS Radio News. David Tulis. Streaming strong at NugaRadio.com. NASCAR. Live on YouTube and Facebook.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
Your home is a constant work in progress. Repaint the walls? Yeah, easy enough. Leaky faucet? There's a video for that. But roof repair? You might want some help. That's where Chattanooga Roofing Contractors come in. They have 3 generations of roofing excellence you can count on. Leave the ladder in the garage. Go to chatroofing.com. That's chatroofing.com for Chattanooga Roofing Contractors, a roofing company you can trust.
I'm always watching the Travel Channel. There was this one episode shot in the Mediterranean one night. It caught my eye. And the food, wow, definitely wanted to try some of that. Luckily, I didn't need to go halfway around the world. I found Olive Branch Mediterranean foods right here in East Ridge. East Ridge. They were telling me how the menu's made fresh daily. It's authentic and so delicious. Your next culinary trip, not halfway around the world. It's right here, waiting for you at home.
Visit Olive Branch Mediterranean Foods, 3992 Ringgold Road.
Man, you sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah, I worked with my dad on his truck all the time. Just one more bolt to go.
Yeah, wrong bolt. Today's truck ain't your daddy's truck. For repairs on today's vehicles, you need Amco Transmission and Total Car Care of Chattanooga on Lee Highway. Stay on the road, not in the garage. Amco Transmission on Lee Highway. Get it done the right way. The Thompson Pet Way. Yeah, I just put that anyway.
Hey folks, Jeff Stiles here, talk radio host and infamous technophobe. But I got to tell you, this Facebook Live that Nougat Radio does, it makes sense to me. It really does. Now, we're at 92.7 on the FM dial, but really where you need to go is nougatradio.com and just do the streaming audio, 8 to 10 a.m. The first hour is mostly just me just throwing commentary in on top of the news. The second hour is me frustrating and irritating you beyond all belief. nougatradio.com. Don't miss it. Every weekday.
Expect some high clouds but dry weather out there for your afternoon. Not bad. Highs 55 to 57. Tonight, clouds thickening. Some showers moving in after midnight. Lows lower to middle 40s. Wet and cool for Thursday with more showers pushing in. Highs only near 50 with a few lingering showers for Friday as well. Celebrate Christmas and the New Year with All-Star Fireworks in Calhoun, Georgia, with the best selection and lowest prices around. That's All-Star. Exit 312 off 575, 3 miles west toward Rome on Highway 53. And I'm Storm Gene 12. She's meteorologist Patrick 4.
Nougat Radio 92.7.
Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Toulis.
City Council meeting last night. There was, of course, this morning a vote in the County Commission against the WWTA proposal for a wastewater treatment facility in Ooltewah. City Council last night heard a story about police from a visitor to Chattanooga. She's named Tiffany Howard. She is a very well-spoken businesswoman, had been at Jenny Mae, at Sally Mae, the lender. She had worked in high administration. And she told about an encounter with 2 police officers whom she called incompetent. And she ended up being in cuffs in their car, was not given medical attention, though her call was for a
Foreign officers in Chattanooga hurting people repeatedly.
Well, the speaker, one of the speakers that spoke tonight from the podium, praised Chief Roddy for his work. It first comes by putting the right person in place at the top, and then it comes down through there. I think we've got the right person at the top. He's been there for what now, maybe a year, 2 years. We've reviewed policy. I think policies are solid. I don't think you judge a whole department based on a couple of individuals.
Well, Chief Roddy was elevated in August of last year, and there was a promise in his being named of reform, because the mayor's speech was regarding the officer who could have killed an enraged and drunken man with a gun who was firing it, but the officer didn't kill this man when he might have previously, because there's an interest in de-escalation and sparing the lives of citizens, which suggests all reform in the sense of the police being more pacific, more peaceful, and less military. Are you seeing any evidence of these reforms promised in that speech?
Absolutely. In fact, I just recently had a conversation with Chief Roddy where he suggested some of his officers that are more trained in the de-escalation be available in some instances, and that was his recommendation instead of using force. So I think that's his philosophy. That's the way he would like to see the police force being handled, and I think it will begin to make a difference.
So do officers need more training in de-escalation and negotiation and peacemaking and treating, if you will, and less on the use of guns, batons, tasers, gas, and the like? Because right now, the national average is about 159 hours in sort of military aggressive training and about 15 hours for de-escalation.
That's an interesting question. The life of that police officer is also at risk, and protecting the police officer is always a top priority with us as well. To make sure that there's a balance, I guess, would be the best response I would have. Making sure there's a balance between training de-escalation and making sure that officer has the skills that he needs to be able to stay alive.
Well, if the national average is 159 for defensive and military actions and 15 for de-escalation, is that a fair balance?
I would say that's not a fair balance. Now, I would trust Chief Roddy to determine what that balance might need to look like. I'm not an officer. I've not faced some of the danger that they faced, but I would trust Chief Roddy to be able to find that balance for his officers.
Councilmember Chip Henderson, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
David Tulis here. This was last night at the city council meeting after there were two presentations, one by Marie Mott, who was following a 5-minute talk, you might say a 5-minute testimony by a woman from Conyers, Georgia, named Tiffany Howard. She's a businesswoman, a very well-spoken, articulate, highly intelligent person, gave me a very strong impression of her gifts and calling. And she had, as she told city council, an encounter as a visitor. She was a tourist, and she called 911 for a medical emergency, and she ended up being mistreated. She ended up being manhandled, one broken rib and nerve damage on her hand. And when she told about that, she held up her sheathed, a black sheathed hand in some kind of container that a sign of its having been injured. She's a woman who has multiple sclerosis and is highly vulnerable. At certain points, she said that it affects one side of her body. And I couldn't tell, having met her earlier in the day, that she had any kind of medical condition, but she did. And she was dealt with by officers whom she said had gross incompetence. And there came into question her psychiatric condition. And the officers apparently, as she explained it, used a statute which allowed them to imprison in their car or take control over, or you might say take charge of or seize a person against that person's will if it seems that the individual is a threat to himself or herself. And that's somehow they thought her to be saying something in that direction. And so they arrested her, and she said that there was a 15-minute psychiatric evaluation by a doctor. I'm not sure where that would have been, maybe at the county jail, and that it took him 15 minutes to indicate that she was not a danger to himself. Now, what's really remarkable about Tiffany Howard is her very gracious presentation. She said that Chief Roddy has the goal of protecting the public and maintaining the confidence of it, and that the officers were acting insubordinately to him, that they were not following the good training that he had given to them. She said he gets it, he's connected to what's going on. And that Saturday night, she said the two cops' actions in roughing her up were to make the Chief Roddy, look incompetent, she says. And she said the actions of the officers were loud and true and too prominent, and their actions against her, she said, especially now that she was sort of testifying in public about her ordeal, make the good police officers in Chattanooga appear to be few and far between. And she said that the city, and here this is someone who has a larger sense of how things work, right? She's a very educated person. She said, well, and we also have, Chattanooga has this wonderful reputation, and how can the city, which is inviting to tourists and has all kinds of sporting events here, and of course we would know it as the Gig City and the River City, how can that reputation be enhanced, and how can hoteliers and restaurateurs who want tourist business, how can they get more of that when things like this happen and people hear about it? You have kind of warlordism, if you will, kind of gangsterism by city employees who are, if anything, you think that city employees would be all about public safety and respect of people and trying to help people, and not looking for probable cause, right? Cops, they have you might say the best cops are always prowling out for a crime or prowling out for some actionable offense that they can see being done on the roadway or being done by someone, and that they can call that person to account and arrest that person and charge that person. That the best cops, that's what they're supposed to do, right? The cops that I would say I like better are the ones who are not the best ones, right? The ones who are much more humane and much more reasonable, and are willing to converse if there's a problem. They'll help you, and they won't. You're changing a tire by the side of the road, and the cop pulls over and flashes his lights to keep traffic away from you. But he doesn't come over and demand your driver's license, right? He's not going to do that. The aggressive cop, the kind probably who Tiffany Howard encountered, were that kind, I'm suspecting. And you heard just a moment ago, Chip Henderson on the city council, and also Erskine Oglesby. Erskine Oglesby, in some respects, I think it's right to say that there are many blessings in Chattanooga. Chattanooga has many advantages over other towns. Policing, despite evil reports that we make here at Nooga Radio, policing is mild compared to other cities. Okay, not to say that we have to look at these other cities and just lay our arms down, lay our concerns down, and just watch TV, right? We don't not to say that, but it is mild. And there is, in some respects, I think it's fair to say Erskine Oglesby, who's a Christian man, is right to say that God has blessed this city. He has, but there still are some very important judgments that we are under because we have not gotten things right, particularly in public administration. And somehow, I don't think Erskine Oglesby is discerning of the problem that his own people face. Right, he is an African American. I don't think because he is wealthier, he has high level paper pushing kind of job in administration in the corporate world. I don't think he just has connections with the common poor people of his race, who are the ones most abused by routine policing. Right, as the Nashville traffic study showed, blacks are disproportionately trafficked, you might say, or traffic stopped, and most usually harassed by policing. I think Erskine Oglesby doesn't get that. And then you heard the comments of Chip Henderson. Chip Henderson is a conservative, and typical perspective of the conservative. I asked him about the training disproportionality between training for violence and training for negotiation and treating and de-escalation, and learning to give time to settle someone down who may have a knife, who may have a rock, someone who doesn't need to be shot, doesn't need to be tased, doesn't need to be hit, just someone who needs to be convinced, okay, look, you're having an episode. Can we help you? What can we do to help you? Not viewing everything as we have to have 10 minutes to get this person under control, and we're going to beat this person with a club if that's what we have to do. Even a woman like the one in Knoxville who was facing an experienced officer. She was naked. She had been called upon because the caller told 911 she's going to commit suicide. She was a suicide-minded person, naked in the street, and the cop shot her. Can you believe that? Well, that officer was on time. He draw the line in the sand. Ma'am, if you cross this line, you're dead. You just can't do that. Okay, it's simply not possible that can continue. We cannot allow that to continue. And I think Mayor Burke kind of made the promise of this sort of enlightenment coming to Chattanooga, but I don't know that we've seen it, though. Chip Henderson reports that there is something of this kind, and you can read this story at Nuganomics.com. Also at Medium, where I'm now writing on Medium.com. Just follow me, David Toulis, there. We are brought to you by Nuganomics.com. Chip Henderson thinks that policies are in order. Policies are good. Clearly, he has forgotten entirely about the abuse of the transportation statute that I've brought to his attention. I brought it to his personal attention, not just by handing him my administrative notice, but also in a meeting where I tried to explain it to him in 15 minutes, why it matters for him and the people in his district, that he has to pay attention to this, that things are not right, that the police department, with the leave of the mayor, who's an attorney, is violating the law every day when it imposes the traffic law upon people not involved in traffic, right? The transportation law against people not involved in transportation. And that's where you have these abusive encounters between private citizens on the road and police. How many, Philando Castile, he wasn't a commercial operator. He was just a man in a car. And yet he was stopped as if he were involved in carrying goods or people for hire. That was the statute that cop who murdered him had as his justification for turning on the blue lights and arresting him. And things are not right, Chip Henderson. They are not right. And if you don't pay attention to the notice, there's going to be hell to pay out, if I may use that expression, for some officer in the near future, as this thing gets locked down. And the burden of this reform is upon the individual officer, because it comes down to him and his employer. If the employer which has been notified of the limits of the statute, ignores the statute, whatever the high court opinion is, right? It doesn't matter what the high court opinion is. If the statute is disobeyed, that's what controls, not high court theory and high court legal fiction about there being no travel anymore in Tennessee. We do have the right to travel. And we have it even though the high court pretends that you don't have it. You have a right to kill your baby in Tennessee, but you don't have a right, they say, to put your right foot with a sneaker on the gas pedal. Press the gas pedal gently down and nose your car out onto the street, turning the wheel to the left and tootling there toward the green light. You can't do that as a matter of right. You just can't. There is no right to travel, they say. They always frame that argument, though, this way. They always say there is no right to drive. Of course, that's true. There is no right to drive, but they always pretend that all travel, all private use of the road that has been defended by a federal judge, Alita Trauger in Nashville, that right does not exist apart from state regulation and state licensure. All regulatory schemes, all licensing schemes are discriminatory by definition. They discriminate. If you say you can use a car, but over here, the black man with the fine, you can't. You just have to walk or take a scooter, right? Maybe you can take Carta to get about. We leave you that. We've left you public transportation. You use public transportation to get to your job. But my job is far away from any of the bus lines. Well, listen, it doesn't matter. Maybe you can hook a bike to the front of the bus and go part way by bus, and then you can ride the rest of the way. That's what Neil Pinkston is saying. He's enforcing an ungodly, racist law. Okay, it's racist because it affects the black person. It affects the immigrant, such as Euler Obed, the man who runs the car repair shop on Rossville Boulevard, the most, and the poor, and the orphan and the widow. They are the ones most damaged by this abusive system. So I would say that Chip Henderson needs to pay attention. He's not paying attention. Things are not right. And as far as the use of violence by the police, I'm glad to hear that Chief Roddy has said he wants to have his lieutenants bring down to sort of press down upon the ranks of 500 cops. We have a gigantic police department. It's just gigantic. It's huge. 500 cops, press down upon them. The need to avoid threats, beatings, violence, tasings, and empty threats. The deputy who made the empty threat to Interstate Tax's friend, Jerron Williams, saying, if you do that, you're going to jail. That's a crime. For a cop to tell someone, if you use your camera to photograph my partner beating Interstate Tax, for that cop to say that that's a crime, for a cop to say that you are going to be arrested if you take a photograph, which is your natural right under the First Amendment, a cop saying that, that's a crime. That kind of thing has to be prosecuted. Neil Pinkston, of course, is part of the Fellowship of the Finger. Cops and DAs work for the same party. They work for the state indirectly. They work for a kind of religious corporation, the modern state, which is the be-all and end-all and saves all. In the state, we have our salvation. In the state, we have our children. In the state, we have our future. And as far as that religion of the state that even professing Christians take part in, all I can say is I would much rather be an atheist than a believer in that deity. Let's not believe in that deity. I think Chip Henderson has a long way to go to become suspicious. His concern, as you heard, is the safety of the officer. He wants there to be 150 hours of gun safety, gun encounter, taser use, gas use, baton use, defensive tactics use, because and only 15 hours of negotiation, because you know what? Officer safety matters the most. Well, that is an untenable position. But I understand that he has it. I'm not saying he hasn't arrived there by reason and use of observation. He has. And the name is David Toulis, and the number is 800-8949. And caller, what's on your mind?
Mr. Toulis, that was a great guest you had on from, I guess it was Vermont, was it? Or New Hampshire?
Yeah. It sounds like Basil Marceau with all of his teeth.
Well, I'm going to challenge some of the things you said. You know me, of course I'm going to, because there's a lot of people that think they're attorneys. What are they called? Street side attorneys or whatever, or jailhouse attorneys. And there are people that believe that philosophizing means that that's the law, you know, with sovereign citizens and all this other stuff. And he mentioned the Uniform Commercial Code. And for people that don't know what we're talking about, it was regarding driver's licenses, the Uniform Commercial Code, and the issue of government as a corporation. This is all baloney. The Uniform Commercial Code is correct. The government is not a corporation. And the taxes around the flag are not advocating involved. This is so simple. The Constitution hasn't changed since it was adopted. It can't be changed without lawful enactments. The Constitution is a compact. It is a legal compact.
And that's Mike. Thanks for tuning in. David Toulis, Nick Radio. Talk to you tomorrow.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news. Now.
A 5-year-old child left alone on a special services bus Friday night for a reported 13 minutes. Reports say a required head count didn't happen. The child fell asleep on the bus and was left behind. The driver has since been suspended. Surveillance video shows the child figuring out how to open the doors to the bus before he got an adult to help him. A woman was hit by a car on Wilcox Boulevard. CPD officers and EMS workers rushed to stabilize the victim. She's since been hospitalized in serious condition. The driver of the car that hit her stayed on scene until police got there. And Hamilton County Schools' winter break begins tomorrow. The break lasts until the 2nd of January. Also on break is road construction around the state of Tennessee. Temporary road closures will reopen throughout the volunteer state as construction workers get the week off. Some long-term closures may stay in place due to safety reasons. Val St. John for Nooga Radio. News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. on Nooga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio 92.7.